Hello everyone, today I'm going to read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 3, The Letters from No One, Part 1. The Letters from No One. The escape of the Brazilian boa considered Harry the longest ever punishment. By the time he was allowed to come out of his cupboard again, the summer holidays had started and Dudley had already broken his new sign camera, crashed his remote control aeroplane, and the first time on his racing bike, knocked down old Miss Fig as she crossed Privet Drive on her clutches. Harry was glad school was over, but there was no escaping of Dudley's gang, who visited the house every single day. Pierce, Dennis, Malcolm, and Gordon were all big and stupid, but Dudley was the biggest and stupidest of the whole lot. He was the leader. The rest of them were all quite happy to join in Dudley's favorite sport, Harry hunting. This is why Harry spent as much time as possible out of the house, wandering around and thinking the end of the holidays where he can see a tiny ray of hope. When September came, he would be going off to secondary school, and for the first time in his life, he wouldn't be with Dudley. Dudley had a place at Uncle Vernon's old school, Smeltings. Peter Polkis was going there too. Harry, on the other hand, was going to Stonewall High, the local compressive. Dudley thought this was very funny. Like stuff people's head down the toilet the first day at Stonewall, he told Harry. Want to come upstairs and practice? No thanks, said Harry. The poor toilet had never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. Then he ran before Dudley could work out what he had said. One day in July, Aunt Petunia took Dudley to London to buy Smelting's uniform, leaving Harry at Mrs. Fig's. Mrs. Fig wasn't as bad as usual. It turned out she had broken her leg and tipping over one of her cats, and she didn't seem quite fond as them of before. But she let Harry watch television and gave him a bit of chocolate cake that tasted as though she had it for several years. That evening, Dudley paraded around the living room for the family in his brand new uniform. Smelting's boy wore maroon tailcoats, orange knickerbockers, and a flat straw hat called boaters. They also carried knobbly sticks used for hitting each other while the teachers weren't looking. As he looked at Dudley in his new knickerbockers, Uncle Vernon said gruffly that it was the most proudest moment of his life. Aunt Petunia burst into tears, and she said that she couldn't believe it was her ickly Duddykins. He looked so handsome and grown up. Harry didn't trust himself to speak. He thought 2 of his ribs might already have cracked from trying not to laugh. There was a horrible smell in the kitchen the next morning when Harry went in for breakfast. It seemed to be coming from a large metal tub in the sink. He went to have a look. The tub was full of what looked like dirty rags swimming in grey water. "What is this? What's this?" he asked Aunt Petunia. Her lips tightened as they always didn't dare to ask a question. "Your new school uniform," she said. Harry looked in the bell again. "Oh," he said, "I didn't realize it had to be so wet." "Don't be stupid," snapped Aunt Petunia. "I'm dyeing some of Dudley's old grey things for you. It'll look just like everyone else when I've finished." Harry seriously doubted this, but thought it was best not to argue. He sat down at the table and tried not to think about how he was going to look the first day of Stonewall, like he was wearing bits of old elephant skin, probably. Dudley and Uncle Vernon came in. Both winked their nose because of the smell of Harry's new uniform. Uncle Vernon opened his newspaper as usual, and Dudley banged his smelting stick, which he carried everywhere, on the table. They heard the click of the letterbox and flop of letters on the doormat. "Get the post, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind the paper. "Make Harry get it." "Get the post, Harry." "Make Dudley get it." "Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Harry dodged the smelting stick away and went to get the post. 3 things lay on the doormat. A postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, who was holidaying on the Isle of Wight, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up and stared at it. His heart was twanging like a giant elastic band. No one ever in his whole life had written to him. Who would? He had no friends, no other relatives, and he didn't belong to the library, so he'd never get ruled nothing's asked him for books back. Yet he heard a letter addressing so plainly could not be mistaken, Mr. Harry Potter, the cupboard under the stairs, 4 Privet Drive, Little Winging, Surrey. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment and address written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning the envelope over, his hand trembling, Harry saw a purple wax seal beating his coat of arms, a lion and an eagle and a badger and a snake surrounding a large letter H. "Hurry up, boy," shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" He chuckled at his own joke. Harry went back to the kitchen, still staring at his letter. He handed over the bill and postcard and sat down slowly and began to open his yellow envelope. Uncle Vernon ripped the bill open, snorted in disgust, and flipped over the postcard. "Marge is ill," he informed Aunt Petunia. "Ate a funny whelk." "Dad!" said Dudley suddenly. "Dad, Harry's got something." Harry was on the point to unfold his letter, which was written in the same heavy parchment as the envelope, when it jerked sharply out of his hand by Uncle Vernon. "That's mine," said Harry, trying to snatch it back. "Who'd be writing to you?" sneered Uncle Vernon, shaking the letter open with one hand and glancing at it. His face went from red to green, faster than a set of traffic lights. And then it didn't stop there. Within seconds of the greyish-white of old porridge. "Petunia," he gasped. Dudley tried to grab the letter out and read it, but Uncle Vernon held it high out of his reach. Aunt Petunia took it curiously and read the first line. For a moment it looked as though she might faint. She clutched her throat and made a choking noise. "Vernon! Oh, my goodness, Vernon!" They stared at each other, seeming to have forgotten that Harry and Dudley were still in the room. Dudley wasn't used to being ignored. He gave his father a sharp tap on his head with his smelting stick. "I want to read that letter," he said loudly. "I want to read it," said Harry. It's mine. "Get out, both of you," croaked Uncle Vernon, stuffing the letter back inside its envelope. Harry didn't move. "I want my letter," he shouted. "Let me see," Dudley demanded. "Out!" roared Uncle Vernon, and he took both Harry and Dudley by the scuffs of their necks and threw them out to the hall, slamming the kitchen door behind them. Harry and Dudley promptly had a furious but silent fight over who would listen at the keyhole. Dudley won, so Harry, his glasses dangling from one ear, lay flat on the stomach to listen at the crack between the door and floor. "Vernon," Aunt Petunia was saying in a quivering voice, "look at the address. How could they possibly know where he is sleeping? You don't think they're watching the house?" "Watching? Spying? Might be following us," muttered Uncle Vernon wildly. "But what should we do, Vernon? Should we write back? Tell them we don't want?" Harry could see Uncle Vernon's shiny black shoes patching down the kitchen. "No," he said finally. "No, we'll ignore it. If they don't get another answer, yes, that's best. We won't do anything. But I'm not having one in the house, Petunia. Didn't we swear when we took him we'd stamp out the dangerous nonsense?" That evening, when he got back from work, Uncle Vernon did something he'd never done before. He visited Harry in his cupboard. "Where's my letter?" Harry said at the moment Uncle Vernon squeezed through the door. "Who's writing to me?" "No one. It was addressed to you by mistake," said Uncle Vernon shortly. "I have burned it." "It was not a mistake," said Harry angrily. "It had my cupboard on it." "Silence!" yelled Uncle Vernon. A couple of spiders from the ceiling fell. He took a deep breath and then forced his face into a smile which looked quite painful. Yes, Harry, about this cupboard. Your aunt and I have been thinking. You're really getting a bit big for it. We think you might be nice if you moved to Dudley's second bedroom." "Why?" said Harry. "Don't ask questions," snapped his uncle. "Take the stuff upstairs now." The Dursleys in the house had 4 bedrooms, one for Uncle Vernon and Petunia, one for visitors, usually Uncle Vernon's sister's Marge, one for Dudley, slept in one, and Dudley kept all of his toys in the other, which wouldn't fit in his bedroom. It only took Harry one trip upstairs to move everything he owned from the cupboard to his room. Thank you very much for looking at this video. Tomorrow I'll be reading part 2. Please subscribe. Bye.